The Grass Fight was a battle fought on September 26, 1835, and would be the second battle of the Siege of Bexar. Due to the victory at Fort Lipatilan, only one garrison of Mexican troops remained in Texas at San Antonio de Bexar, where a Texian force under Stephen F. Austin had begun a siege a month before. As the weather turned colder and rations grew smaller, many in the Texian Army had started to become sick, and groups of men would begin to desert. On November 18th, however, a group of volunteers from the United States, known as the New Orleans Greys, joined the Texian Army. Unlike the majority of the Texian volunteers, the Greys looked like soldiers with uniforms, well-maintained rifles, adequate ammunition, and some semblance of discipline. The Greys, as well as several companies of the Texians who had arrived recently, were eager to face the Mexican army directly. Encouraged by their enthusiasm, on November 21st, Austin ordered an assault on Bexar the following morning, but fewer than 100 men were willing to launch an attack. Within days, Austin would resign his command to become a commissioner to the United States. The Texians would elect Edward Burleson, Austin's second-in-command, as the new commander of the Texian Army. At 10 a.m. on November 26, Texian scout Erastus F. Smith rode into camp to report that a packed train of mules and horses, accompanied by 50 to 100 Mexican soldiers, was within 5 miles of Bexar. For several days, the Texians had heard rumors that the Mexican army was expecting a shipment of silver and gold to pay the troops and purchase additional supplies. The Texians had been fighting without pay, and most wanted to charge from camp and loot the expected riches. Burleson calmed the crowd and then ordered Colonel James Bowie to take 35 to 40 mounted men to investigate, but only attack if necessary. After Bowie recruited the army's 12 best marksmen for the expedition, there was little doubt that he intended to find a reason to attack. Burleson managed to stop the entire army from following by sending Colonel William Jack with 100 infantry to support Bowie's men. About 1 mile from Bexar, Bowie and his men spotted the Mexican soldiers crossing a dry ravine that was likely near a confluence of the Alazan, Apache, and San Pedro creeks. Bowie's men charged the Mexican party, scattering the mules. The mounted forces briefly exchanged fire, and then both sides dismounted and took cover in dry stream beds. The Mexican forces counterattacked, but were repulsed. In Bexar, General Cos saw the battle begin and sent 50 infantry and 1 cannon to provide cover so the cavalry could retreat to the town. The Texian infantry also heard the initial shots and rushed towards the battle, at one point wading through waist-deep water. They approached the battlefield during the lull. The lack of noise made it difficult for them to ascertain where the Mexican troops were, and the Texians were surprised to find themselves between the Mexican cavalry and infantry. As the Mexican troops began firing, the Texian infantry dropped to the ground. Colonel Thomas Rusk led a group of 15 in an attack on the nearest Mexican cavalry. As those cavalrymen fled, the Texian infantry was able to scramble for cover, and the Texian cavalry would join their infantrymen. Burleson's father, James Burleson, led a cavalry advance on the Mexican position, yelling, "Boys, we have but once to die. They are here in the ditch. Charge them." The Mexican artillery fired 3 times, driving the Texians back. 3 times the Mexican cavalry attempted to take a small rise to give the artillery better position, but all 3 attacks were repulsed. The Mexican infantry would begin their attack on the Texian position. Rusk wrote of the Mexican attack, "These men advanced with great coolness and bravery under a destructive fire from our men, preserving strict order and exhibiting no confusion." The infantry abandoned their charge when they realized that Texian James Swisher had led a band of cavalry to try and take the Mexican cannon, and the Mexican force then withdrew towards Bexar. 4 Texians were wounded in the fighting, and 1 soldier deserted during the battle, and the Mexican casualties suffered 3 killed and 14 wounded. The Texians captured 40 horses and mules, and to their surprise, the saddlebags did not contain the gold or silver they expected. Instead, the mules had been carrying freshly cut grass to feed the Mexican horses trapped in Bexar. This prize gave the battle its name. This victory allowed the Texians to believe that although outnumbered, they could prevail over the Mexican garrison. The Texians believe that Cos must have been desperate to send troops outside of the safety of Bexar. Several days after the battle, on December 1st, a handful of Americans in Bexar convinced General Cos to allow them free passage from the city. Although they had promised to leave the country, the men, including Samuel Maverick, instead joined the Texian Army and provided information about the Mexican defenses and the low morale within the town. Buoyed by their grass fight victory, on December 5th, the Texians would begin the attack on San Antonio.